All right, welcome to Game 1 pregame show, Seattle versus the Dallas Stars. We are in the building to represent BS3 Network and do our pregame show. I'm Ben. This is Dawk. First off, how you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. Fantastic. Ready to get the second round series underway and see what these Kraken have for these Stars.
Exactly. So coming into this series, Seattle just finished off their opponent on Sunday. So just really a small bit of a break.
Yeah.
Getting right into it with this game one. Stars had they finished on Friday, so they had a couple more extra days in there.
Right.
But I don't really think. Let me ask you this: I don't know if that really matters the time and space. If you're ready, you're ready.
Yeah, well, it can. It just depends. So the rest can either be a problem, the fact that they didn't get any rest, but they could also be on a high from just coming off of a Game 7 victory that nobody expected them to win.
Yeah.
So it's really going to be hard to tell until the game gets started how this is impacting them.
Yeah.
It could really go either way. Now, one thing that you should know about the Seattle Kraken, and now is just as good a time as any, is to say that this, even though this is an expansion team, this is not a young team. They have 5 players on the team who have won Stanley Cups. Okay. There are 3 individuals who have won 2 cups. That's Justin Schultz, the defenseman, Vince Dunn, the defenseman. Yanni Gordy, the center. And those 2, Justin Schultz and Yanni Gordy, have won 2 cups. Jaden Schwartz, center, Dunn, defenseman, and Philip Grubauer, the goaltender, they have all won 1 cup. So between 5 players, they have 7 Stanley Cup victories. So why is that important? Well, that's important so you know that this is not a young team. So maybe that rest comes into play because of that, number one. But number 2, so you don't think that because this is an expansion team that this is going to be a easy victory by any stretch of the imagination. Again, when you have a goaltender that has won a Stanley Cup and you got 2 players that have won multiple cups and you got 2 other players who have won 1 as well, they know how to get it done, obviously.
Yeah.
So again, this isn't your typical expansion team.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. When you look at sports, period, and you have an expansion team, most of the time, teams have to send a player to that team, and they're able to draft. So they're given a lot of resources, and they really came, out of the gate. Really, one of the top teams in the NHL.
Yeah.
Say the same thing for the Las Vegas Knights as well. They came in immediately, one of the best teams. So, yeah, do not underestimate this team. And they were the wild card. When I was looking at the playoff rankings and everything, they were a wild card beating Colorado Avalanche, and people were trying to compare, what this upset was like, being that the Avalanche won Stanley Cup last year. So talk about that and that momentum that Seattle's starting to have.
Yeah, well, a little bit more than just that for me is that talking about let's just give a little bit more information about the expansion teams and why it's important for the league that they do well initially. And that is because of the amount of money that they're paying for expansion teams now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the NHL is not like the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA in the fact that their prices are already over $1 billion to acquire a team.
Right.
The Las Vegas Golden Knights, they were acquired for $100 million is what it cost to get a team, and the Seattle Kraken cost $650 million for them to get a franchise. So as a result, you're not going to pay that kind of money and not want to at least be competitive. So as far as the league is concerned, they're doing everything possible to make sure that they are competitive early on for that type of investment. So that's one of the reasons why you're not seeing a typical expansion franchise. In terms of beating the defending Stanley Cup champions, that should tell you two things. Number one, that this Seattle Kraken team is no pushover, number one. But number two, it is very possible that Colorado took them light, and before they got an opportunity to say,
it's too late.
It's too late. You done got caught. So it is going to be very important that Dallas gets off to a good start, not only in the series, but in each individual game. Because again, in the series with the Minnesota Wild that went 6 games, all 6 games, whoever scored the first goal won the game.
Yeah.
So that may not hold form, and that's not something that you see typically in the season. But in the playoffs thus far, where the Stars are concerned, whoever scored the first goal won that game. So it is important that you get off to early starts, good starts early.
Yeah. And watching some of the interviews this week, Coach Pete DeBoer, a lot of the other players giving a lot of respect to Seattle.
Yeah.
And not, that's the right thing to do, not to bash your opponent. I mean, there's some trash talk I'm sure will be on the ice. They were really giving some respect in what they were able to put on the floor. But let's talk about the Stars. The previous series, getting it done, closing it out in Minnesota. Shout out to Ottinger, just what he was able to do the entire series, but specifically in those last 2 games, how he was able to take care of business in net, didn't let it get out of control. So talk about Ottinger for a minute.
Yeah, a lot of people say that Ottinger really showed up in Game 4. Again, that brought the series to 2-2. They were able to take a 3-2 lead and then, of course, finish them off in Seattle. But Ottinger has risen his game to another level. He has said from the get-go that he has something to prove, that last year's playoffs was not a fluke. I think he's done that. I think he's going to continue to get better. Again, confidence for a goalie means a ton.
Yeah.
So if they're feeling it, if they have confidence, that's a big thing. Now, this is going to be a completely different type of series than it was in Minnesota. Minnesota series was a very physical series.
Yes.
Very physical. Seattle is a more of a finesse team. They got a lot more speed than Minnesota had. So the type of series that we're dealing with here is going to be a very different. Now, what I think went unsaid too much in the Minnesota series in terms of Dallas Stars players who did not get enough credit, and that is Miro Heiskanen. Miro, basically, you got the number 1 offensive player for the Minnesota Wild in Kirill Kaprizov, who scored a goal in Game 1.
Yeah.
This was their top scorer, for Minnesota. One of their best. Him and Miro came in the league at the same time. He scored 1 goal in their first game. Not only did he not score another goal the rest of the series, he didn't even register another assist. So that means no other points for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So hats off to Miro Heiskanen for basically shutting him down. Now, again, Miro's not the only defenseman who had a task of dealing with him, but he did for the majority. So that was a difference in your game, in your series, as far as I'm concerned, is that as Dallas's defense. Obviously, people will point at the power play and how dominant it was. The penalty kill was dominant. But again, with defense, a defense will travel. It's been said in a number of sports that defense wins championships. And I would have to give the Stars the edge defensively in this particular series with the Kraken.
Yeah, and shout out to our Stars journalist and reporter, JJ Neely, who in his article earlier today, go to bscnetwork.com, you can read that. He was basically saying that they are 4th in penalty kills and power play goals, I'm assuming in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that goes to show you that those are definitely key things that we got to focus on. We got to capitalize on those things. Now to move over to some of the players, obviously Rope Hintz with a great series with 5 goals, Robo with 2, Tyler Sagan with 4, and that tells you just the depth on this team. And I think a lot of them star players haven't really hit their peak. I mean, and they've really been doing what they wanted them to do.
Yeah.
The Sagan had to slide into Pavelski's role.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So with Joe Pavelski going out in concussion protocol, Tyler Sagan slides into the top line and plays his position. As you can see, he scored quite a bit on the power play. Yeah. So Coach DeBoer at this point is not going to make a change there. He's going to leave Tyler on that line to start this series. That may change as the series goes along, but he's going to leave him on that line for a moment. Hopefully, with the presence of Joe Pavelski back, Robertson will get it going again. Again, he finally got a goal toward the end of the series against Minnesota Wild, so hopefully he will come out and he will be the one that'll take off. But if you have not seen the goal that Rope Hintz scored to start the scoring in Game 6 in Minnesota, do yourself a favor. When I say it is one of the greatest plays, in fact, they were debating it on the radio the day after, and they were saying it was one of the greatest plays, not only in Dallas Stars playoffs, but maybe in Dallas Stars history. Wow. The move that he made on this guy that basically stumbled him, it was equivalent to an ankle breaker in basketball. Yeah. Okay, so he put a move on him, got past him, this is all while skating, controlling the puck, and putting it in a place to where you can shoot it on net and make it, So, hey, if you hadn't seen that, do yourself a favor and YouTube Rope Hintz goal, Game 6 against Minnesota Wild to get us started.
So looking at the record throughout this season, it's 4-1-1 overall, 2-0-1 at home, 2-1-0 on the road. So the Stars definitely have the upper hand in the regular season. Yeah. But just like Coach DeBoer said, the regular season is over. I mean, the slate is pretty much wiped clean. You can't think about what happened during the regular season will always translate to the playoffs.
Yeah, they said a very unique 3 games against Seattle, and they all came at the end of the season, so they were really, really close together. So these teams will be familiar with each other just simply because of that. Now, even though the Stars won 2 of those games and they tied another one of those games they had to come back from a big deficit. That's not something you want to do. You do not want to be chasing the Kraken in playoff hockey. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to be playing from behind. That's what I mean when I'm saying chasing. You don't want to do that. You want to play with the lead. If you can play with the lead, you can typically, your goaltender is going to generally feel more comfortable, and your players can play a little freely. And if you start playing from behind and you start having to chase it, what will take place is you'll start playing hockey that's really chaotic, okay? And all over the place because you're chasing that goal, and you start doing things that are not within your normal purview in terms of what you normally do as an offense. So it's important to play with the lead so you can stay patient and run your offense.
Yeah, exactly. So kicking off the series, we got Captain Jamie Benn finished the season series against the Kraken with a consecutive 3-point performance. That was on March 13th and 21st. Pavelski, he'll be back tonight, and this is I think something that maybe a lot of people don't know. So Wyatt Johnston is actually living with Joe Pavelski. Right. And I think the impact that has on him, but him being around the team, everybody was saying that uplifted them in a completely different way. Right. So with him being able to actually be on the ice, I think that's going to be an X factor, if you will, and an added bonus that the Stars could definitely use.
Yeah, no doubt. So Joe Pavelski is not some average player who got hurt and that was out. Joe Pavelski is a big part of this team, and so to lose him and for the Stars to show the intestinal fortitude to hold it together until he got back and not do things like trying to retaliate against the Wild and just say the best thing we can do for him is to get him back in these games And the only way he's going to get back in these games is for us to still be in the playoffs. Right. So, yes, there's no doubt about it that having Pavelski back will be a huge lift to the Dallas Stars.
Yeah. It's major. So we're about 40 minutes from puck drop. Fans are starting to come in. The Stars do a great job at getting the fans involved. They got these watches here that they have for the fans. They got towels. I mean,
they're not watches, they bracelets. But okay, whatever. They don't tell time.
Whatever. But I think they do a great job getting the fans involved. And looking forward to this matchup. Let's talk about some keys for some key players for the Kraken.
Yeah.
Number one, we got Yanni Gordy had 1 goal, Jordan Schwartz with 2, and Justin Schultz with 1. So, I think they battled in this previous series. Definitely would have gone 7. I think that could possibly have a little bit of an advantage because you really battled it out. So talk about the Kraken and some of their star players.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny about it is that all those people you just named are all the Stanley Cup winners. So again, they're scoring the goals as well. Okay. Yeah. Now again, I think what's interesting when you start thinking about the Seattle Kraken players, and I'll have to include their coaching staff in this. The Minnesota Wild had plenty of villains to hate, including their coach Dean Evison. Okay, so between him and a couple of their players, Dumba and I can't remember the other guy's name, Folagino, there are plenty of villains to hate. Okay, the Kraken aren't going to have any villains, not to start anyway. That's not the kind of team they are. Their coach is a real passive coach. I'll give you an example. Dean Evison with the Wild, anytime the press asked him a question about a Stars player, he refused to answer the question. He did not make one comment about the Stars players. That was already been able to tell a difference this morning in the team's morning skate. They asked the Seattle Kraken coach about the Stars players, and he had plenty to say. Most coaches in that situation are going to be glowing about their players because you don't want bulletin board material. You want to be able to be complimentary and glowing about their players just to show a sign of respect.
Yeah. Shout out to Courtney Harden, host of The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. And we got you, Courtney. We got polos, so we definitely gonna get one to you. Just text me your size. We definitely want you to have one as you're out and covering for the network as well. And goalie, Philip
Grubauer.
Thank you very
so
much. If you don't know me, I'm a butcher of names.
That's right. It has nothing to do with hockey, I promise you.
Hey, tune into the forecast on Monday.
And so what's funny about this is Grubauer is the same name as, the last name. There was a Hans Grubauer in the Die Hard franchise.
Yes.
So a lot of people are kind of making a play on that. But yeah, Grubauer, again, he's a Stanley Cup winning goalie. Okay, he doesn't have a shutout in the playoffs like Jake Ottinger does, but he's been solid. Okay, and to be able to beat a team like the Avalanche, I don't need to know anything else about it. He's doing what he needs to do. In terms of other players on the Seattle Kraken's team, another notable player is Jamie Oleksiak. He actually played for Dallas for 9 seasons. He played 7 seasons, then he went, I think, off to Colorado, and then came back and played 2 more seasons. So he was asked at morning skate this morning, hey, you got any insight on Dallas and playing for them? And he's like, well, I know a few of their players, but I can't say that any insight is going to help us in terms of this series. So, again, Jamie Oleksiak, that's one storyline, is the fact that he has played with the Stars for 9 seasons.
Yeah. And so we're about 36 minutes. We had somebody on the ice. I couldn't tell who it was. But the energy is starting to increase. Fans are starting to come in more and more. And the Stars are definitely ready for the series. I think they have the right coach as well. Just being around him in the interviews and watching some of the press conferences, he really seems like a player's coach, if you will, and somebody that definitely relates well to the players. You don't see any bickering. You don't see players calling him out, which you see in areas.
Yeah.
So talk about Peter Bohr for me.
Yeah, no doubt. And you've actually seen that sort of thing coming from some of the executives with the Stars, whether it be Jim Neal or other front office personnel. They are not shy about calling out players or coaches or whatever the case may be. So for this team to have the type of chemistry that they have, and again, Coach talked about that earlier. A couple of players have talked about that earlier, that they are very comfortable with the team chemistry. A lot of people don't understand in all sports, it doesn't matter how much talent you have. It doesn't matter what kind of seating you have. If your team chemistry is not good, you're not going to do well. And they have good team chemistry. And I would probably give them an edge in that over Seattle, just simply because Seattle is a team that has just been put together.
Right. And the NHL and pretty much every NHL and the NBA have been clamoring to get a team back in Seattle. Supersonics, obviously, in basketball, the Kraken really kind of opened that door. Hopefully, maybe the NBA may follow suit because Seattle is definitely one of those cities that wants that.
And Seattle being so close to Canada, which Canada is hockey, so you should have a team in Seattle.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, let's get to some keys to the game for the Stars.
To keep it very simple, as Razor Ray says, you need to get it in and keep it out. Talking about the puck, right? But for me, I would have to say staying out of the penalty box. Okay, you don't want to take any penalties, and you want to capitalize on your power play. So special teams, you need to make sure you continue doing what you were doing in Minnesota. When they take a penalty, which is inevitable, you need to make them pay. Okay, so I would say that was keys to the game. Second of all, I would say your defense stays where it was. Don't give up any. For the odd man rushes that you were giving up in the first series, which are basically breakaways or fast breaks, if you were trying to compare that to basketball, odd man rushes, it seems like they were giving away 3 or 4 of those a game. You got to cut that out, okay? And some of the reasons why that type of thing was happening is because you're either making poor passes or you're taking chances on defense that you shouldn't take, okay? So you can't give odd man rushes. And again, taking advantage of your specialty teams. And again, Jake Ottinger. So goes Jake, so goes the Stars. Simple as that.
Definitely. And one last stat that I found here that I wanted to mention. Ottinger stopped 23 of 24 shots when he faced in Game 6 on Friday. And we just need him to continue that. So really my key is just really continue what you've been doing. You've been successful at it. Keep the same lineups, which from what you said, that's what they're going to do. And don't be afraid to get physical. Don't be afraid to get physical and just outplay Seattle. Do what you do best, and I think that'll pretty much take care of it.
Yeah, because I got news for you. What Seattle is going to do, Seattle is going to try to get in Jake Ottinger's space and make him uncomfortable.
Yep.
That is going to be one of the strategies that they're going to try to employ here. So watch out for that as well.
Yep.
Again, these games can be watched on ESPN and on Sports Radio 96.7 FM and 1310 AM, the ticket.
Yeah.
So make sure you check those out.
Yeah, and a lot of people have been very critical of the ESPN coverage. I don't really have a way either or. But you can tune into the radio, like you said. It's not on Bally from what we can see.
No.
And
It's on ESPN this time. So
ESPN.
first round is always given to the local media, the local stations. But once you move to the second round, that's when it gets to the national broadcast. So I didn't watch any of the first round on TV because obviously I was at the games covering them. But I'm willing to bet you're going to see an improved broadcast from a TV perspective. Because it's gone national now at that point. And then in addition to that, your radio broadcast, you can never go wrong with Razor Ray and Josh Bogarov. I promise you.
And that's what the ticket does. They're the only station that truly covers the stars.
Yeah.
I think the fan does what they can, but obviously the ticket is that's their hub.
It's their flagship station. Right, that's exactly where their games are broadcast. So the access that they're given and that type of thing. Yeah. Again, they got the stars for a reason.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate the support. Go to bscnetwork.com. Check out the articles we have up there. We will be pushing the envelope. So if there's something you don't agree with, we love all the comments. We love the smoke, but we do love the stars, most importantly. So you guys have a great one, and we'll get out of here.